Emily and Sarah. It was a chilly autumn evening, and 7-year-old Emily was anxiously waiting for her parents to leave for their overnight trip. The babysitter, Sarah, a 19-year-old family friend, arrived promptly with a warm smile on her face. Just as always, for this was not the first time she had offered to help babysit. Emily's parents kissed her goodbye, gave her the usual laundry list of instructions, and headed out for their plans, leaving the little girl and the babysitter alone in the house. Everything appeared seemingly normal throughout the evening as Emily and Sarah played games, laughed, and even baked cookies. However, as the night went on, Sarah couldn't help but keep an eye on the clock. Emily's bedtime was fast approaching, and Sarah felt the need to step out for a smoke. Even though it had been a while since she last had one, she didn't want to leave Emily alone while she was responsible for her. After tucking Emily in, turning off the lights, and gently shutting the door, the atmosphere suddenly took an eerie turn, and strange things began to happen. After a little while, Emily, feeling a little thirsty, yelled out to Sarah for a glass of water. She could hear Sarah shuffling around downstairs, but she didn't respond. Emily was about to call out to Sarah again, to make sure that she had heard her, when she began to hear the clinking of glasses. After what seemed like a long time, Sarah brought her a cup of warm water. Confused, Emily looked up at Sarah and mentioned that she wanted cold water instead. Sarah grabbed the glass slowly and left the room to fetch the cold water. But the sound of the faucet was unusual. It sounded like it was turning on and off multiple times. On and off. On and off. Again and again, until it stopped and Sarah returned with the cold water, wearing a strange, unsettling smile. Emily took a sip of the cold water, still unnerved and slightly put off by her smile. "Thank you," she said, as she slunk back into her bed. "Can you turn off the light now, please?" But to Emily's bewilderment, Sarah didn't seem to comprehend what she had said. She stood there still smiling, and didn't make any move to turn off the bedroom light. Emily tried to remind her. "The light, Sarah. Can you turn it off, please?" Sarah's response was unnerving. She merely tilted her head, maintaining that eerie smile, but it was as if she didn't understand Emily's words at all. Emily started to feel uncomfortable, wondering what was going on with her friend. Was she playing a joke on her? Why was she not speaking? And what was with that smile? Finally, Sarah broke her unsettling stare and moved towards the light switch in a weird movement. It was as if she took very long steps quickly. Very quickly. However, instead of turning it off, she switched it on and off repeatedly, as if fascinated by the flickering effect. This sent a shiver down Emily's spine, and she felt her heart race with fear. As the light flickered, there was something about that smile that was even more off-putting. Even though she knew she was looking at the light, Emily could have sworn she saw Sarah's eyes flicker over to her every now and then during the parts that she could see. Her face still facing towards the light. Trying to remain brave, Emily spoke again. "Sarah, the light. Please, turn it off." A feeling of dread washed over her, like the feeling of doing something you shouldn't. Seemingly snapping back to reality, Sarah abruptly turned off the light, plunging the room into darkness. Emily's heart pounded in her chest as she pulled the covers up tightly, feeling more vulnerable than ever. She didn't know what to do. She sensed that something was deeply wrong with Sarah, and her instincts told her not to trust the once familiar face. In the pitch-black room, Sarah just stood there smiling, while Emily tried to ignore the feeling of being watched. Minutes felt like an eternity as Emily lay there, trying to pretend everything was okay. Not once did Emily hear her leave the room. Finally, she mustered up the courage to speak again. "Sarah, I'll be fine. You don't have to stay here in the dark. You can go watch TV or something." Closing her eyes tightly. Without a word, Sarah turned and stepped into the hallway, shutting the door behind her. Emily relaxed a little and slowly lowered the covers. Careful not to be too quick, Emily thought Sarah had finally left, but as she lay there, paralyzed with fear, she noticed the shadows of Sarah's feet under the door, the dim light from the hallway outlining her presence. She knew what had to be done, but was too afraid. Seeing no other options and planning her way, she slowly and quietly removed the blanket. With a racing heart, Emily snuck over to the door and locked it, hoping that Sarah wouldn't hear the lock click. As soon as the lock engaged, Sarah's voice echoed through the hallway. "Emily, let me in, please. It's cold out here." Emily felt a knot in her stomach, but she couldn't respond. What was there to say? It sounded like Sarah. But the tone, she knew that it wasn't. Sarah's tone turned desperate, and she started pleading and begging to be let in. But Emily stood shaking, knowing that something was seriously wrong with Sarah. Even if she wanted to open the door, she couldn't. She was too afraid to move. As the minutes passed, Sarah's pleas turned into panic, and she began frantically trying the doorknob, shaking the door and knocking on it. As Sarah grew angrier, her voice deepened, almost slipping into a man's gravelly tone for a few seconds, sending chills down Emily's spine. The words that escaped her lips were filled with obscenity and threats, making Emily all the more sure to not open the door. Then suddenly, Sarah fell silent for a few minutes, as if realizing she had crossed a line. The tense atmosphere hung heavy in the air as both of them seeped in the intensity of the moment. But soon enough, Sarah's sweet voice returned, as she resumed her attempts to manipulate her way in, talking softly and occasionally knocking, much nicer than she had even started with. It was like a mother cooing to her baby. This cycle of sweet talk, panic, and anger continued for the rest of the night without fail, leaving Emily trembling with fear and confusion. Morning finally arrived, and Emily's parents returned home. Desperate to escape the ordeal, Emily called out for her parents as they approached her bedroom. With trembling hands, her father unlocked the door, and they were greeted only by a frantic and sobbing Emily. Emily recounted the night's horror to her parents, who immediately searched the house but found no trace of Sarah. The father searched the garage, the outside, and the backyard. Back there he found a cigarette butt neatly set in the tray. Her parents decided to check the backyard camera footage, hoping to get some answers, as that was the last place anyone besides Emily would have seen her. The chilling recordings revealed Sarah stepping outside for a smoke just after dark, right after bedtime. She was just scrolling on her phone when strangely she appeared startled, as if she had seen something in the woods just beyond the camera's view. Then a voice that sounded like Emily's called out from the trees, begging Sarah to come and help her. Sarah hesitated, looking back at the house and then back to the trees. She then looked at the camera with confusion before venturing towards the tree line. Seconds passed with eerie silence, with her just looking into the trees, until the sounds of branches breaking and Emily's cries were heard. Panic-stricken, Sarah rushed further into the darkness. There was nothing but the sound of crickets for about 5 to 10 minutes. Then the camera footage showed Sarah returning to the house, seemingly disheveled and disturbed. Her hair was tousled, and her clothes bore marks of twigs and dirt, as if she had crawled around or fallen outside. Despite an entire town search, Sarah was never found. From that night on, Emily's parents moved to a new house, hoping to leave the haunting memories behind. However, the little girl's innocence was shattered forever, and she struggled with nightmares and fears for years to come. The disappearance of the babysitter Sarah remained a mystery, leaving the community to wonder what truly happened that dreadful night.